Cheers, guys. Epix911. Welcome to what I hope is the start of a weekly game in review series. Basically, it's going to be a weekly show detailing, in summary, all the games for the four big platforms. So, of course, Rift, Vive, Sony PlayStation VR, and Gear VR. Now, while I deal with news for Google Daydream View and Google Cardboard, I don't tend to announce the games. I can't recall a single request that I've had for either of those platforms. So if it is your platform of choice and you do want to hear about games for it, just let me know. If there's a few of you, I will definitely include those games. I'll append it to the end of the show so you can use the timestamps that I always include on my videos and just get to the games you care about and get on right out, right? The show isn't a commitment like the daily news show. That's something I've committed to, but I'm going to try my best to make it a weekly show. I just think it's good to separate it from the news, just to give you a place without having to weed through individual news shows for that week to see what games I was talking about. So here we go. Sit back, guys, and let's take a look at some virtual reality games out this week together. Cheers. This is the game Narcosis, and it's available for both Vive and Rift. Survival horror VR game. When I talked about it the other day, I said it was a BioShock-like. That was based on what the writer of the article had said. In researching this a little bit more, really the only similarity appears to be the water. It's about that feeling of being alone, according to the developer, and trapped leagues under the sea. That's what they're trying to instill. That and a really good dose of fear. So the developer for this, Honor Code, no price as of yet, but March 28th is their planned release date for this game. Once again, that is for both Vive and Rift. The game is Narcosis. Okay, this next game is called Karnage Chronicles, and it's an episodic co-op RPG. You can play it single player. Developer for this, company called Nordic Trolls. Love that name. They hope to have it released within the first quarter of 2017. So January, February, March. Yeah, that means we should be seeing this by the end of the month. And hopefully that is the case. $34 US is the price point. In their marketing, they mention the following: 1 to 4 players for the cooperative play. So obviously 1 being single player, and then 2, 3, 4 for the cooperative aspect. So full online multiplayer capabilities, 4 unique classes to choose from. So if you play with the maximum 4, you've essentially got a party that, every person in that party fulfills one role. You've got all the roles covered, which is really cool. 90 frames per second, maintained throughout, regardless of your graphical settings, and action-focused combat for the VR. Very cool. This one definitely has me interested. This game called Panzer Panic, and it's a tank combat game being compared to Battlezone on the PlayStation VR from developer Handy Games for both Oculus Rift and HTC Vive, available right now, $9.99 US. As you can see in this trailer, the arenas are pretty diverse. You've got your tight, claustrophobic, maze-like terrain, hills, foliage/forest, buildings for town, village, city-style combat. Also, with that comparison to Battlezone, you can see that it's more action-based as opposed to being a simulation tank game. So unfortunately, if that's the style you're looking for, you're not going to find that here because it is so action-orientated. But it's a hell of a lot of fun. Developed by Handy Games, like I said, for both HTC Vive and the Oculus Rift. That is Panzer Panic. This game is called Overload, and it's specifically for the HTC Vive. It was a Kickstarter project originally that got funded, and if it looks a little bit familiar, that would be for a reason. The guys behind this are the same people behind the 1995 hit game Descent. If you're not sure what Descent is, let me just fill you in really quick, just a quick 101 history. Descent basically turned the gaming world on its head. At this time, you got to remember, it was basically Doom, and that was it. It was Doom for multiplayer mayhem. This game comes along, and not only is it 3D, true 3D, unlike Doom, which was a ray-traced, almost 3D, this one actually allowed you to fly around in 3D, including the Z-axis, so you could go up or down at super fast, frantic pace. It was just amazing. It was just an awesome game. It had spawned a few sequels, tons of copycats. So the guys who were behind the original, now they're calling themselves Revival Productions. The game is in early access after having been funded on Kickstarter, like I mentioned, for $24.99 US. In my opinion, a hell of a deal. And this game is Ironwolf VR. It's a submarine game. It has a multiplayer component, which, just like the last game I was talking about, supports co-op. Now, they're billing it, and it is a submarine game from a company called Ionized Studios. It's in early access for $19.99. So to what I was saying, they're billing it like a game FTL. Now, if you haven't played FTL, people call it a roguelike. I call it a roguelike alike, which would be my preferable label for it because it isn't a true roguelike, but it does follow some of the convention. So you can play it single player, but co-op is really where this game shines. If you've ever played Silent Hunter for the Commodore 64 way back in the day, it's got a lot of that vibe. And I personally love that game. They've got a modern sequel on the PC, Silent Hunter 3, I believe it is. So definitely, you like submarine and warfare, get Ironwolf. This game is called Passengers, and it's a puzzle game, a movie tie-in style puzzle game. The developer for this, MPC VR, available this week for $9.99 US. Now, the whole point behind this game is you are on a massive spaceship from the movie Passengers. Spaceship is called the Avalon. Chris Pratt, who was in that movie, he's even recorded dialogue for the experience, and it features some really breathtaking views and amazingly cool areas to explore. According to those who've tried it, the puzzle solving can get a little tedious, but it's definitely aces in the visual department and the exploration department. So if you like that type of game where you're in space, stuck a la System Shock Showdown, this might be for you. This next game is called Cursed Sanctum for the Gear VR, billing itself as an interactive adventure game from Arabian Art Studios. It's available now for $2.99 US, which is not a bad price for those graphics. And if the graphics give you the idea that it's a free roaming game, that's the one thing that I would just provide as a heads up. It is in fact a rail-based game, so you are stuck on rails, i.e. there is no free roam on this. So if you're okay with that, you know, $3 for an adventure game with graphics like this, even if it's just mediocre gameplay, that's not a bad deal. This next game, called StarBlood Arena, is for the Sony PlayStation VR. I love what the writer, the article that I was reading on this game said. He said it looks as if Eve, Valkyrie, and Riggs had a baby, and it certainly got all the pacing. In fact, I think it looks a lot like the game Overload that we were looking at a few minutes ago, which itself is, based on its spiritual predecessor, the game Descent, that I also mentioned. So this kind of looking a lot like that. Now, in this game, which is a multiplayer, 2 to 8 players, you're flying what they're calling battle pods in tournaments, set up in-game by the StarBlood network. As you have success, like the more success you have, the more ship components you can unlock. That's where the Eve Valkyrie comparison comes in. So the more success, the better your ship. Hopefully, the higher you can climb. And it's got that competitive league aspect of rigs as well. It's kind of a shame. It would have been nice had Cambridge, the company behind rigs, stuck around just to kind of see what their ideas would have morphed into, right? The next game, the game after that. But this, it kind of picks up that baton, I think, and runs with it. So it's close quarter competitive co-op multiplayer. Once again, StarBlood Arena, April 11th, 2017. So a couple weeks away. Almost there. We'll announce it as we get closer. And the last game in the show, and the last game for the Sony PlayStation, is called Statik. It is a puzzle game from developer Tarsier Studios, also an April release, going to launch April 24th. So when that arrives, we'll do a little bit more in depth on this game. Now, it has you solving puzzles. The backstory is you don't know who you are, you don't recognize yourself, and your hands, which you can see in the video here, are stuck in some kind of box contraption. Yeah, you're not sure who you are, but each day that you wake up, you've got a new, unique, hand-mounted puzzle to solve. So, in other words, what your hands are stuck into is part of the puzzle. So there you have it. Statik for Sony PlayStation VR. Well, thanks for joining me, guys, on this weekly recap of the games available. Hopefully next week brings us some more games, and, as the months continue to roll by in this year, lots of VR gaming goodness for us. As always, guys, till next week, cheers.